Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon there in California. It's an honor to be to moderate the session today. I'm JP Lee, CEO and Managing Partner of Softbank Ventures Asia. We're the venture capital arm of Softbank Group. Let me start the session with a brief introduction of the amazing panelists we have today. We have Saeed Amidi from Plug and Play, Tim Draper from Draper Fisherman Jurvetson and Draper University, Jack Young from Deutsche Telekom Capital Partners, and Jung-hee Ryu from FuturePlay. Nice to meet you all, and I'm pretty excited to moderate this session. Why don't I start with a quick introduction of all of you. Starting with Saeed Amidi. Saeed is the president and CEO of the Plug and Play Tech Center in Silicon Valley. Prior to establishing Plug and Play, he co-founded Amidi Group in 1980, a conglomerate of privately held business enterprise consisting of several domestic and international entities with significant manufacturing, distribution, trading, retail, and real estate holdings. Saeed founded Plug and Play. This is a startup ecosystem in 2006. And he's been making a lot of contribution to the community to boost startups. Moving on to Mr. Tim Draper. Tim Draper is a legendary top venture capitalist, having founded Draper Association and DFJ. The firm's investments include Coinbase, Robinhood, Twitch, Skype, and I can't name them all, and many others. He's also a leading spokesperson for Bitcoin, blockchain, ICOs, and cryptocurrencies, and had led investments in the companies that would issue two of the largest ICOs in history, Tezos and Bancor. And moving on to Mr. Jack Young. Jack is a partner and the head of venture growth capital at DTCP, Deutsche Telekom Capital Partners. He serves as a board member, observer at many companies that includes Araka, Dynamic Signal, NS1, and so many others, responsible for the investments and the management. Prior to joining DTCP, he was the managing director of Qualcomm Ventures North America, and he was also general partner at DRX Capital. And lastly, I'd love to introduce Dr. Jung-hee Ryu, who's the founding partner of FuturePlay. He was also a senior entrepreneur who were the founders and CEOs of OlaWorks, which was acquired by Intel, and also Icon Lab, which he was the founder and CTO of the company. He had studied at KAIST with his electrical engineering degree. Nice meeting you all, and I'm happy to have you all here. And I think it's time to begin our session. Our topic is the prospect of global startup ecosystem and the roles of startups in the post-COVID-19 era. As we all know, it's been a really, really hard year for all of us, because of the impact of COVID-19 everywhere. And as you can see, we're joining this session remotely. I was also supposed to be there sitting in one of those chairs, but unfortunately, COVID third wave had hit Korea hard this week, so I'm also joining this from home. And today, we're going to listen to all of your stories of the prospect of global ecosystem and the roles of startups in the post-COVID-19 era. And I will be spending the next about 25 to 30 minutes to discuss and hear stories from each and every one of you. So moving on to the first session, which will be presented by Mr. Saeed Amidi. I'll hand it over to you to talk about economy recovery led by the startup ecosystem.
Thank you so much, JP. It's a great pleasure to be with everyone. And I really would have loved to be there in person. We pride ourselves that when we open plug and play somewhere, using Sunnyvale, California as an example, or Stuttgart, Germany as an example, we try to bring to the innovation platform all the parties that would make this platform successful, which starts with entrepreneurs and universities. And then we embrace, bringing in angels and VCs. And then we feel, as you put events like today together and feature these technologies and help them scale, magic happens. To give you some stats, in California, we help about 1,000 startups per year. And some of them, like what we hope to do in Seoul, Korea, are in the automotive industry, mobility industry, and smart city. And each platform, if we are successful, we would have about 50 to 60 startups a year go through the platform, work with our corporate partners to identify needs in the society and then help to solve the problem. During this COVID, starting from March and April, one of our corporate partners is Roche, and we worked with Roche to say how you would deal with COVID-19 at the workplace. What is the safest way to, if you choose to go to work, And we work with a number of pharmaceutical companies to accelerate their development. But let me, because in California, we work with 30 universities, MIT, Harvard, Stanford, Berkeley, and we try to bring their technology to a startup and then help them scale that business. And it's, some people say, like, what happens in Silicon Valley, it's hard to repeat it in Seoul or in Stuttgart. So let me use for you our Stuttgart example. In fact, our office is at the University of Stuttgart. They built a 100,000 square feet robotic lab to promote innovation and IoT and systems. And we are located inside that building, Arena 2036. But together with Mercedes, Porsche, Volkswagen, Bosch, and many, many other companies like Deutsche Telekom, actually the T-System is one of our partners there in Stuttgart. We feel the mobility and shared economy, electrification, and autonomous car is moving so fast that not one company can keep up. So specifically in Stuttgart, we run a program called Startup Autobahn, and we start with the challenges of Mercedes, Volkswagen, BASF, and many, many other corporations. And then we invite startups from US, Canada, Israel, even Japan and Korea to solve that problem and work with the engineers of the corporations in 100 days. We just had our expo, Winter Expo, which usually would have attended 2,000 people, but we had to do it totally virtually for 2 days. And we featured 27 case studies where these corporations worked with startups and helped to create value. You know, the topic today is what happens after COVID-19 and what is the role of startups. I don't know. I mean, like, it has been tough times, but our startups this year have done better than ever. You know, I almost am embarrassed to say that in the year 2020, we had 5 new unicorns. One was customer that last week Facebook announced that they purchased it for $1 billion. One is Big ID. The other one that disrupted the insurance business is Hippo. And, you know, because everything needs to be virtual and digital, I feel it's the best time for the entrepreneurs, especially technology entrepreneurs, to grow, to be successful, and help us build a better world. And, you know, I feel the role of entrepreneur is to speed up the innovation and the implementation of technology to improve lives. And I will finish by saying, you know, I don't know if you guys can see my little United Nations marker for sustainability and clean water. You know, the one thing we are most proud of in the year 2020, together with Alliance to End Plastic Waste, we opened the platform here in California, in Paris, and in Singapore. And we are helping about 60 startups that help to clean the plastic waste in the ocean, in our homes, and in our society. And I feel, again, if I had a message to the entrepreneurs, is that you have to nowadays have a great business model that makes a profit and is great business, but also you have to keep in mind the impact, the social impact, and the environmental impact. And I feel the role of a startup and these ecosystem, which we hope to join Seoul, Korea, and launch in February, it will help the whole economy to raise, and then we can connect it to our other hubs in Japan, in Singapore, in Munich, Paris, and all around the world. It's great to be here with you, and I'm very pleased that we have finally decided to open up Korea in February.
Great, Saeed. Thank you so much for your talk. I mean, I would like to echo 2 points that you mentioned. You know, well, first of all, the start of Autovan that you mentioned, I think that's a good example and a benchmark for, you know, some of the CEOs who are joining us as an audience today. And I also feel like, you know, our entrepreneurs that we're backing, and well, the founders who are just starting the company would feel more social responsibility, you know, on top of the business itself. Well, we'll revisit this at the Q&A panel discussion. Why don't we move on to Mr. Tim Draper? He'll talk about changes and prospects of the global startup ecosystem in the post-COVID-19 era. Tim?
Terrific. Thank you, JP, and thank you, Saeed. That's terrific. Saeed has been my mentor in starting an incubator. He was the first of all these incubators. But what I want to talk about is first Korea. When people ask me, they start talking about being socialist. I point them to Korea. And I just say, well, wait a second. Korea was one country. and then it got divided in the war, and there was a DMZ, and the Southern Koreans were a democracy of free market capitalist system. The North Koreans were a socialist dictatorship, government controlled. The South Koreans now are making 400 times, on average, 400 times the money the North Koreans are making. And the average South Korean is now, 4 generations later, 4 inches taller than the average North Korean. It's pretty clear to me that freedom, free markets, capitalism, democracy is a fabulous way to go. And you talked about sustaining Korea at this point. It's freedom. It's you continue that freedom, and boy, your country will grow and grow and grow. And as soon as the government starts putting down too many laws and regulations and start telling you what to do and force you in place, that's the beginning of the end, and that slows down progress. So I encourage you all to fight for that freedom, keep that freedom alive, and grow that freedom, because it is what made South Korea as incredibly great as it is. So I'll start with that. Second, I'll eventually get to the point you guys want me to get to. I'll talk a little bit about what we do. I started Draper University of Heroes to encourage entrepreneurs, and we've had a lot of Koreans there, to encourage entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs to become great heroes and to be willing to overcome big barriers and do whatever it takes and fail again until you succeed, very much the way Safi was talking. And those entrepreneurs are really the lifeblood of growth in the world, and we should honor them and encourage them every step they go. And if they fail, we should honor them too. When they fail, they push the ball forward, they push progress forward, and they're really helpful. So we started Draper University for that. Now the whole thing's kind of evolved. So here's what we do for entrepreneurs. First, we have a Draper University Online, which, by the way, started because of COVID, because we weren't allowed to use our facility anymore. And so we created an online school, and it was a big hit, really successful. We've now had 350 students through there, and they average rated a 9.1 out of 10. And that's the beginning of getting to our entrepreneurial funnel. And then we bring them through the best of those then get a shot at going to Draper University Hero Training. And the best of those, or some of those, get a chance to be on our show. I started a show called Meet the Drapers, and my family and I go and interview entrepreneurs, and it's kind of fun and funny, but we set it up so that people could crowdfund. And so we allow crowdfunding. The viewers get to crowdfund. We now have 9 million viewers, and we don't have distribution in Korea. So if anybody's interested in that, I'm Tim at draper.vc, and I'd love to hear from you. And then when an entrepreneur reaches a certain level and we've given them hero training, then we want to fund the best of those. And we fund those through Draper Associates, and encourage them and move them forward and bring them up to the level that where Softbank decides that they're worthy. And we look at that entrepreneurial mission as a path, and we take them through that path. And the path is not an easy one, but it's a great one. And now, getting to COVID, we have had the same experience as Saeed has. I don't think I mean, maybe at the top of the .com bubble, I had a year like this, but I don't know if I've had a year like this. It's been extraordinary. The entrepreneurs have the customer has accelerated their purchase of the products that we're trying to create. Things like VR headsets. All the VR headsets have been selling off the shelves because people are wanting to use VR because they're stuck in place. They want to try something virtual. Bitcoin. People are buying Bitcoin like crazy. There are more Bitcoin wallets out there than ever before, and it's because people are realizing that they're stuck in place, and they start thinking, well, wait, what is this Bitcoin? How does it work? Is it better currency? And then the U.S. printed $11 trillion, and suddenly people were going, yeah, let's go to Bitcoin because these dollars have just been diluted by about 20%. So that has been great. People are using remote medicine, and they're using remote delivery and all of that. And those are all things that we've been funding all of this time. And then and then where do we go after and of course, COVID's been horrible because it's interesting that the lockdown is supposed to have saved a couple 100,000 lives, but it has also apparently put 135 million lives in great danger. And that's because we've cut off supply chains, and that's not a healthy thing. So we really need to get everybody back to work, and the lockdown's a bad idea, but the mask may be a good idea. And so COVID's been this horrible shock in the system, but who thrives in a shock in the system? It's entrepreneurs and venture capitalists. We thrive in change. We're looking for change, and it's a dynamic situation, and a lot of interesting things are happening. And here's where I'm seeing entrepreneurs go. They're looking at these new technologies and they're applying them to big markets. And just the way the internet transformed communications and information and media, gaming, entertainment, hotels and taxis, these new technologies have the potential to transform the biggest industries in the world. And let me explain. Bitcoin came along, and it's the beginning of transforming banks. The blockchain came along, and it created a whole new system of keeping perfect track of your money and your data. So accounting, auditing, bookkeeping is all going to be moot over the next 5 or 10 years. And then smart contracts are being built on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And those smart contracts are allowing us to operate without having lawyers get in the way of every single project that we get involved in. And ultimately, I think that's going to transform venture capital, where I hope that I can raise a fund in Bitcoin, invest it all in Bitcoin, and have my entrepreneurs pay their employees and suppliers in Bitcoin, where all the accounting and all the waterfall is all done on the blockchain through smart contracts. That's going to change a lot of things. And then we have great artificial intelligence. AI is going to change all of our lives. And it's going to eliminate all of our jobs. And what's great about that is that all of our jobs are then going to become more abstracted and more creative, and the mundane tasks are going to be taken by AI. So you start combining all those technologies with surveillance, and suddenly you can create an insurance company with just like one actuary and all of this artificial intelligence, so that like I could create, you're in Hippo, Saeed. Well, I could create an insurance company right now with smart contracts and surveillance, and I could provide better service than any insurance company out there today, because what a great entrepreneur can do, not necessarily me, but a great entrepreneur can do is deliver the claim before the claim is made, because the surveillance can say, yeah, that house burned down, get them their money immediately. Send them their Bitcoin to their Bitcoin wallet immediately. That kind of thing is going to start to happen. It's going to change the whole nature of insurance. And what is government but a series of insurance packages? So that means that governance is no longer tied to geographic borders, and governance is going to be passed through borders are going to be more porous, and people are going to be able to choose the governments or the government services that are right for them. And so I think we're going to see a whole new decentralized governance marketplace where Korea might be competing with some government that's created 11 miles offshore or up in space for providing healthcare insurance or whatever to that government. And then before I close, I'll mention healthcare. Healthcare is all going to be data driven. And that is an incredibly exciting proposition. You're going to see already we have a company, Cloudmedics, that actually does a better job of doing diagnostics than the average doctor does. It outperformed the average doctor on a test, and they were only using people's medical records. If you start adding things like their Fitbit results and their genetic history and their blood test results and the airplane they sat on or the airplane seat they sat in or the food they ate, you start really putting together the kind of data that can provide a really good diagnostic tool. And then on therapeutics, we have a company called Verge that uses computational biochemistry and has predicted a drug that is 26 times as effective as remdesivir for COVID. So drug design is going to be not only really faster and more effective, but efficacy and safety are going to be done on the computer, and that will drive some incredible new growth in healthcare. And going beyond that, those computers are going to give you bespoke medicine that's specific to you, to your genetics, to your life, to whatever. We're about to move to where, what have I named? Finance, banking, insurance, government, healthcare. 6 of the greatest, hugest industries in the world are about to go through an amazing transformation. And these entrepreneurs are the ones who are going to take us there. And I'm incredibly excited about it. And I think once we get over this COVID and the nationalism and the tribalism that's come back to us, we're going to be back to being a global society, and we're going to be so much better off. I am incredibly excited about that, and I'm excited to get back on an airplane and come to Korea.
Thank you, Tim. That was very inspiring. I wish we had more time to talk more. I mean, at a sad time like this, I think what you brought up were very inspiring for everyone, including all the entrepreneurs that are here today. I just wanted to echo your emphasis on Bitcoin's blockchain, artificial intelligence, and the healthcare opportunities that we see at a time like this. Whenever there's a crisis, there are always opportunities, and I hope our entrepreneurs could capture that. So since we're running out of time, I'll quickly move on to Mr. Jack Young at Deutsche Telekom Capital Partners. He will talk about digital transformation in 2020 and beyond. Jack?
Fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. I guess I will just continue to follow on the theme about digital transformation. So, as you know, basically, that permeates every part of our life. But today's talk, I want to focus a little bit on enterprise, what's taking place in enterprise. Essentially, digitalization is taking every process that we know, right, using digital technology to interlink together to produce experience both for internal users as well as changing the customer experience. Digitalization is basically allow us to be virtual, right? we are today. We have digital transformed our conference to a digital form. But I want to take you a little bit of history, also talking specifically more about it on the investment side. What are the opportunity lies ahead of us as investors as well as entrepreneurs? So if you would take a look at what I talk about, this transformation really happens the last 2 decades. The first decades, I would say right after year 2000, that's where the foundations have been laid, right? So the first thing that you saw in 2016 was Amazon introduced the service on-demand services for AWS, basically allow you to using computer as if you're using utilities that is on demand and you can pay as it grow. So that was a novel idea at the time, and quickly everyone else pretty much sees that was a brilliant idea. So not surprising, Google has followed the suit a year later, introduced GCP, and Microsoft quickly followed with Azure. But at the same time, not only the computing are moving massively available in the cloud, but also there's a transformation on your palm. We are so addicted to the phone today. Just remember that's only 13 years ago, Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone that we all enamored with, and along with other many smartphones available today. And back in 2000, a little company called Salesforce basically was created that decade, starting in '99, and went public in 2004, and at a modest valuation of $1 billion in 2010, they become a $10 billion company. But still, very few people actually know of what's really happening takes in the next decade. 2014, again, a significant year. Microsoft had a regime change. Satya took over from Steve Ballmer. That basically, building on years of desktop experience, he realized, companies, corporates are somewhat ready, but it's still reluctant to move into the cloud because of security and other things. And Microsoft couldn't be the better position because they already have the corporate customers, and now they are the one who put a stamp, approve on the cloud to be enterprise ready, to be security compliance. So with that, we see a crescendo of the enterprise software to be developed and delivered on that platform. So the rest of it, as you can see, the last 5 years has just been remarkable, right? Physically, you can see 2018, I would say one of the pinnacles in Silicon Valley, moving San Francisco be the iconic city for Silicon Valley, erected the Salesforce building, right, which is the largest office building and maybe perhaps the tallest west of Mississippi, finished in 2018. And again, Salesforce solidified being the top dog in the enterprise software space. In the span of 10 years, they have increased the market cap yet again, $10 billion. But there are a lot more company coming, right? With this year, we have witnessed the fantastic IPO of Snowflake, and last year, obviously, Zoom. And if you look at the public cloud companies, roughly about a 50 company. For those not familiar, you can go to Bessemer's website, take a look at it. And beginning of the year, these collected company has exceeded $1 trillion in market cap. And I looked at this morning, it's $8 trillion. So that's just been a fantastic investment, and it's tremendous growth for these companies. So along with the computing resources become available in the cloud and software being delivered in the cloud on a per consumption basis, is here come change the business model, right? Many of you now heard about SaaS, software as a services, but what also being changing here is the business model. Traditionally, companies sell you a piece of software and then you pay a maintenance 10-15% year over year to keep it updated. It's cumbersome, it's lots of requirements, and you have to have lots of computing resources in your data center to run that. The beauty is the subscription as a business model is that not only software is always kept in date and bug-free for you, but also you consume as needed, right? You can pay per usage, or you can pay per head. So hence, many companies are starting to embracing that, and you can see the traditional big companies, software companies, those ones we know, Adobe's and Tableau's and many others are quickly moving into that model. But also the hardware company, Cisco, right, is in the forefront selling hardware one-time consumption. They also want to get into that software as a subscription as a business model. And the beauty is that if you're operating company, if I'm a CEO of the year 2020, my company had $100 million in sales. If it's one-time consumption, next year I have to basically regenerate that book of business entirely. Now, if I were to be in a subscription business model, as long as I keep my customer happy, hopefully next year 100 million business customers follow with me. So hence I can focus on the growth instead of just to figure out how to create a brand new book of business entirely. Hence, this business model becomes very sticky and very highly rewarding and stable. On the consumer side, the beauty is that if I'm enterprise today, traditionally, I basically go into these vendors for large monolithic softwares, whether one designed for HR or one designed for accounting. And when I try to get these software working together, it's cumbersome, right? Because it requires a custom development and so on and so forth. What it basically cloud computing allow you, along with so-called modern APIs, application programming language interface, is essentially I can mix and match the best breed of products together for my specific use. So I'm basically have a canvas. I can build whatever the software I wanted, and I can find a way to link together. Not only today, the cloud application allow you to do these application level, but if I'm a developer, I also have these modules, so-called microservices. So if I want to create an e-commerce site, I don't have to write everything from scratch. I can just pick up a checkout card, payment using Stripe, or security using Auth0, right? So I can quickly stitch the program together with the best case experience, focus on the main business logic or business services I try to deliver instead of focus on all this miscellaneous things other people may do much better. And in return, obviously, these companies starting focus on the specific application are doing tremendously well. So if you look at a company today, many companies are so-called created in the cloud, right? Like our company itself, we're 5-year-old, and essentially, if you were to go to our headquarters, we don't have any cables, we don't have any routers and switches, and essentially everything can be started tomorrow with just basically a credit card and a laptop computer, and you can have your entire IT infrastructure running with G Suite and with Zooms and Slack, productivity, etc., and so on and so forth. And likewise, if you were to building an engineering product organization, you can start to use analytics, you can use all kinds of things, GitHub for your software controls, whatnot. So essentially, allow you to do much faster, and you can do that and switch it for the best breed whenever you want it. All the things are possible, especially I mentioned about the connectivity with APIs. So kind of a talk about if you were an entrepreneur in building software as a services, there's many ways to be successful. You can be successful on the SMB side by charging people hundreds and thousands of dollars a year, or you can focus on enterprise and global Fortune companies. Essentially, if you look at it today, many companies consider how do they get to $100 million from scratch in the 10 years. This is sort of the golden path, right? You can choose either spectrum. You can focus on the product and let a product-driven marketing program works, or you can focus on the customer and the top-down approach. So those are pretty common. One of the things about software as a services is that I mentioned that there are lots of ways of doing that, but interesting enough, because it's a repeatable business, right, year over year piling on. So there are lots of data patterns you can look into that. So over the years, many SaaS investors come up with all kinds of nomenclatures. You probably heard about magic numbers. You probably heard about capital efficiencies, et cetera, et cetera. So what it does is that basically allow entrepreneurs building similar businesses, whether you're building accounting software or HR software, at the end of the day, you're selling to a corporate and they pay a subscription, whether it's $50,000 or $100,000. You can focus on certain things and you can compare and benchmark yourself against many others to see how they do it from a different parameters, and then you can use these guidelines to optimize their business. Hence, that's another benefit of a business where there's a recurring nature, there's a history behind it, and there are lots of companies doing similar approaches. So again, there are lots of studies you can look into that if you're interested into that. I mentioned many companies have followed that follow that process, right? Looking into different benchmarks and whatnot, and quickly building a sizable business. As you can see this chart, many companies are created in the last decade, and many companies have reached $100 million market shorter than any other company has created in the history, right? 5, 10 years and continue to grow. If you think about Zoom into $100 billion valuation company was created 2011. I was asking to give a talk about a year and a half ago. So as I prepared for this talk, I thought about looking into what if happened in the time capsule. In June 2019, here's the top 10 enterprise software companies with a market cap of, as you can see here. And if you were to be investing in those top 10, and if you kept down most of the stock, you'll see in 2000 and today, you basically would increase easily 2.5 times, right? So that's just a sign. As you can see, this is the BVP's index of the 50 SaaS company I mentioned earlier, clearly outperformed SMB, the NASDAQ and S&P, which is not a surprise to you. So I mentioned about we have gone through these 2 decades of these innovations, by starting with software delivered through the cloud computing business model change to subscription, and the monolithic software break into point solutions, as well as application delivering the microservices. So kind of looking beyond, and I think echo many other speakers said earlier, right? One of the things that we talked about is this decade is all about AI. Right? AI is here to replace these softwares. If you think about many software today, take the CRM essentially today, is that I contribute something, you consume something, and you contribute, I consume. Really, there's, other than the organization, there's not a lot of value added. But imagine there's AI in between, things become different, right? So we're going to continue to see that the software is essentially liberates maybe a single human, a few in a company, but with AI, essentially we can liberate many functions, including the entire department, right? So this is the thing we're getting very excited about it. Equally, we also saw that the mobile, right, becomes a central part of it. Now, if the 5Gs came out, especially in Korea, this is being a big part of it to driving the economy forward. The other side we saw is basically the continuation of, point solutions, microservices, people looking at a different combination of a cloud, right? Multiple clouds, hybrid cloud, basically avoid the vendor lock-ins. And then finally, we'll see the platform continue to aggregate. And most recently, you probably see this huge acquisition, second largest software ever, Salesforce acquired Slack. You're going to continue to see a lot of those, whether we're in the virtual or not, but we're moving forward. So just kind of wrap it up. I mentioned that we are in the forefront of this innovation. We do have an office in Korea. We have made our first investment to be announced pretty soon in Korea. And I hope that I'll be able to come to Korea regularly next year. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jack. It was quite inspiring to hear your talk. And I'd like to echo your emphasis in the way people develop softwares has evolved, which has made this development process so much easier for anyone to build a software. And I think we can't emphasize more on the importance of AI and the decentralization blockchain in this new era. So I would like to ask Dr. Ryu, Jung-hee, who's also a longtime friend of mine, a serial entrepreneur from Korea, to give a short comments on the panel's presentation.
Yeah, thank you. So I believe that the COVID-19 situation, that it opened a lot of opportunity for the startups because it opened I think the superhighway to the future. So because before COVID-19, ordinary people, they do not know about the availability of the artificial intelligence and the other technologies in the real world, real life. But after COVID-19, we should use the advanced technology to survive. So I think that there is really the huge opportunities to every startup, because always startups think about how to improve our daily life. But the problem was the ordinary people, it's really hard to learn what is the giving any value for the ordinary life. But after COVID-19 situation, everything was changed. So I think that one of the biggest changes that will come is the change in the offline retail. So before COVID-19, there existed the two columns. One is the offline retails, and the other is the online retails. But after COVID-19, there are no border between the offline experience and online experience. So it's on the kind of the age of big blur between offline experience and online experience. So it will impact on the every offline retail experience. So I believe that a lot of startups will contribute on this type of the improvement.
Great. Thank you, Jung-hee. We're running out of time a bit. I was supposed to ask 3 questions, but instead I'll try to combine those 3 into one, and I'll be able to spare about 2 to 3 minutes for each panelist. So obviously there are pandemics impacts on each society and country, and the way startup world react to this, and many people are worried about the impact of the global crisis, COVID-19 crisis, and startup ecosystems and financing availability. How do the COVID-19 crisis and investment climate affect your world or operations? And in addition to this, what would be your advice to our entrepreneurs to survive this act or die, or act fast or die trying environment? Why don't we go ahead and ask Saeed first?
Great. It's a great question. I would say like around March 10th, when we recognized in US what we are dealing with, it was about 20 to 30 days of shock and awe. In fact, Sequoia, as they usually do, they informed all their portfolio companies, you should tighten your belt, you should conserve cash, and I would say a little bit overreacted. But immediately after 30 days, especially for software and technology startups, we saw that you could still build the company, build your product, and most importantly, sell it. And, and as I think Tim Draper mentioned, appetites have gone higher for new innovation and new technology. So personally also, I became a little bit more conservative and slowed down my investments for 3 months. I still kept investing, but I did a smaller check size and a few less investments per month. But immediately I corrected myself and I realized the opportunity that is in hand and doubled down on entrepreneurs that can give a solution to a real problem. So again, I feel not much has changed, except it's harder to make personal relationship unless you meet people around, a conference room or at lunch or dinner. I would say that personal relationship is suffering a bit, especially if it's a new relationship. That's where I would stop. But it's a great time to invest, and it's a great time to have a startup.
Great. There are always opportunities when there are crises. I agree. I can't. So let's move on to Tim. What are your thoughts? Do you see any climate changes, during this crisis, and what would be your advice to our entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's interesting when I saw Sequoia and others decide that they were going to be deer in the headlights. I decided to invest. I went in big, and it's kind of it looks like it's working out fine. There were a few deals we did where it really did save the companies, and we're thrilled we did it. I'm used to operating remotely like this. I have we actually did I was on the first Skype video call ever. And I did this thing called pitch, the Skype pitch competition or something like that, back in like 2005 or something. And so I'm used to this, but I agree with Saeed. I'd so much rather be in touch with people because there's that random occurrence that's so valuable, and that creativity that comes from slamming into people. I think we miss that, the human part. That's a dangerous thing to lose, and so I might recommend masks. I definitely don't recommend the lockdown. I recommend we get back out there, we connect, and it is the person. I mean, Saeed and I have known each other for a long, long time, so we can reconnect on Zoom and no big deal. But, you know, Jack and I don't really know each other that well. And if we were, and we're just put together here, it's really tough to sort of bond with him. And so I think we really need to get back out there. We need these conferences to happen in place. And I think we need to get back to, you know, normal or paranormal, super normal. This is a big time. It's a very important time, and it takes a politician with some guts to just say, hey, get back out there. You know, we're going to get the vaccine. We're going to get them. The masks can stay on or come off, but we got to get you out there and building your businesses again, because otherwise the UN is correct, and their prediction of 135 million people starving because of the lockdown is going to happen.
I see. I think that's a very important point for our audience here as well. Jack, has COVID-19 made any impacts on your operation and your investment activities? And what would be your advice to investors and entrepreneurs in our world?
Yeah, we talked a lot among our partnerships and team members, as well as many entrepreneurs. I echo with Tim, the human element is essential, especially in the early stage. So when we look at the world, when we invest, they are early stage companies. You typically look at the visions, teams, and there's not a lot of things that you can look into that. So we experience it's extremely difficult for these entrepreneurs to gain trust, especially you're the first time entrepreneurs. So what I recommend is obviously try as much as you can, because one thing about Zoom is everybody's available, right? Otherwise you try to get an appointment with Tim is almost impossible, but Tim probably have a 15-minute Zoom for you. So sorry about Tim advertising for you. So I would say it's very critical for early stage companies to cast the net as much as they can and taking advantage of the Zoom. Now, the benefit of the mid stage, growth stage in a company is that they have data, right? So it makes life a little bit easier for us as a growth stage investor. We can tend to look into the numbers, and most likely we have met these entrepreneurs once or twice in the past. So for us, we really haven't seen that much impact, but I sympathize for those people who are starting a business today and haven't really had a chance to meet with many investors. You really have to find a way to crack that.
I see. Jung-hee, would you like to add any comments to this?
So I think that the COVID-19 phenomena, the impact is different in each country. So for example, now in Korea, is not so bad about their investment environment. And now we found there are a lot of their interesting situations. For example, some Korean startups, they connected to the US and they hired a lot of the US employees there because it's a really good chance to hire the top tier engineers there. And the other situation is that a lot of the early stage US or the other international startups, they come into the Korea and they got some money from the Korean investors. So after this pandemic, every startups can survive not only based on their own countries, but also approaches to the other countries or the the environment. So I think that now we are learning on the new standard under the investment ecosystem.
Got it. So I think we're obviously living in a very interesting time where technology such as AI, blockchain are rising, and at the same time, the way people are living, the social behaviors are changing because of the COVID-19, this unexpected crisis. I'd like to share about a minute to each of our panelists as a closing remark, comment, since we're almost up. Saeed, would you like to say anything?
No, it's just great being together with Tim. I remember when I wanted to start investing, he was one of the good friends who had a very open door policy, and he sort of showed me the way. And, I believe it's not a zero-sum game that somebody will win and somebody would lose. I think we can all collaborate together and build this ecosystem to the benefit of everyone, entrepreneurs, corporates, and the society.
Great. Tim? I think you're on mute.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I just think this is a really weird time, and I'm hoping, and it really, the weirdness comes from the leadership in the media, and I think it really takes leaders with some guts to get us out of this and get us back to freedom. The greatest leaders in the world were the ones who set us all free. And the worst leaders were the ones who tried to put in government controls. Sure, when you have a pandemic, you got to educate everybody. You got to have them understand what their risks are, what they should be doing, all that sort of thing. But you don't become the police state. You don't become North Korea. It doesn't work. So I encourage you and your leadership to open back up. It's time to get back to work. We can't just hover in our, cower in our hovels and live in fear for the rest of our lives. It makes no sense. Humanity needs each other. There are 8 billion of us. We all help each other. Let's get back together.
Great. Jack?
Yeah, I was just going to say one of the things during the pandemic is keep yourself mental and physical healthy, right? So think about it. One of the things, I did a calculation. I used to go to New York for 5 board meetings. Every time is a trip, 25 hours. And if you deduct to save the time, but essentially I save 40 hours a year, right? So think about the time that you have saved. How do you reinvest the time on yourself or on your business? So take it where everything with a grain of salt, right? I think pandemic certainly creates a lot of inconvenience, but also creates a lot of opportunity for all of us.
Great. Jung-hee, last comment from you?
So crisis is a seed of opportunity. So I wish that every startup focus on the opportunity, not the crisis itself.
Great. Thank you all. We're obviously living in an unprecedented, unpredictable time, which could be sad and discouraging. However, throughout the discussion today, it was for me at least very motivating and encouraging time, and I'm sure our audience must have felt the same. We saw the hope and the new future during our discussion. The time's up. That's all for the panel session today. I would like to express my gratitude to all of you for sharing your precious time for the session. I believe this was an excellent opportunity for players in both regions to get insight for preparing for the unpredictable, uncertain future. And I was very excited to have you all, and I hope you also enjoyed talking to each other here. Thank you once again.
It was fantastic.
And thank you all to the audience.
Thanks so much. I learned a lot from all of you. You guys are great. And Saeed, it's awesome to see you again.